Well, you're right. I think we have 19 or 20 people that are running now. But several things. Number one, I'm one of the few candidates with executive experience and a track record of getting things done. So, for instance, when I talk about the need for universal pre-K, the thing I'm most proud of in San Antonio when I was mayor was that we took to the voters a ballot initiative to significantly enhance or expand high-quality full-day pre-K. As the mayor of the seventh largest city, as a cabinet secretary with a budget of $48 billion and 8,000 employees, I've had executive experience. I also represent a new generation of leadership, and what I can tell this year is that people are looking for a new generation of leadership.
Right.
On top of that, I think if folks check out my website at juliancastro.com, they'll see that I've articulated a strong, compelling vision for the future that is comprehensive. I've said that in the 21st century, we want to be the smartest, the healthiest, the fairest, and the most prosperous nation on earth. And I've laid out a blueprint on how we can do that. And so all of us are going to make our case. Politics is always a combination of a lot of things, right? People's track record, their experience, their ability to connect with voters, resources, your timing. And what I'm going to do is go out there and work hard in states like Iowa, obviously New Hampshire and the other early states. And I believe that by the time we get to the Iowa caucus in 43 weeks, that I can do well.
Yeah, and so kind of going off of your experience in executive roles, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your experience as the HUD secretary and how that has kind of shaped your policy platform as running for president.
Well, what I got out of that experience at HUD was just this deep sense of both the challenges and the opportunities that exist for communities in our nation. I traveled during my time as HUD secretary to 100 different communities, big and small, from Alaska to Maine. And I saw the way that communities are grappling not only with housing issues, but with everything connected to that: poverty, educational achievement, jobs and opportunity, infrastructure, public health. And so the view that I bring, or the perspective that I bring, was shaped by seeing how people are actually living these days and understanding that there are issues out there like affordable housing that are important to so many families in our country but don't get any attention in these presidential races. In fact, if we went through the transcripts of the last 50 years worth of presidential debates, Republican and Democrat, I bet that we wouldn't find one question about housing, even though more and more families are paying 50 or 60% of their income in rent these days. So I got to see the country and understand how people are actually living, and I'm convinced that that's going to help me, not only be a better campaigner, but hopefully be a better president.
And you also talked a little bit about your vision of making the country the healthiest, safest, things like that. I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about your top policy areas and how exactly you're going to achieve that vision.
Well, I mean, one of the challenges that we have after this administration is there's so much work that we need to do to repair the damage that this president has done, and then advance our country in the years to come. So, the way that I think about it, there are things that we're going to tackle immediately. For instance, recommitting to the Paris Climate Accord and then embracing sustainability and working to combat climate change. We're going to take up the unfinished business of healthcare and undo the sabotaging of the ACA that this administration has done, and then make sure that Medicare is available for every single American. We want to invest in educational opportunity for young people, so I've called for universal pre-K for 3- and 4-year-olds. And also, I believe that we need to reform our immigration system. This president has made people believe that we have to be cruel in order to be effective in terms of a secure border. I believe that we have a border that is more secure than it's ever been, and that we can be compassionate. And I laid out a plan called People First Immigration that would stop treating people who come across the border as criminals. They would be treated with a civil violation. They'd still be in a process, but a civil process, not a criminal one, would stop playing games with asylum seekers and let them actually file their asylum claim, and would dedicate more resources to an independent immigration judiciary so that we could actually process those claims. It would include accepting more refugees into this country, because the number of refugees that we accept has been going lower and lower. I think it's between 30 and 40,000 now. And would also take a longer term view toward actually solving the problem that we have in those northern triangle countries like Honduras and El Salvador, Guatemala, by investing in a 21st century Marshall Plan for these countries so that people can find safety and opportunity there instead of having to come and knock on the door of the United States to find those things.
And going into policy outlooks about education, I know especially on a college campus, the issue of college debt and the price of college education is very important and on the forefront of all of our minds. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your higher education policy and kind of what you would like to do with that.
Well, I'd like to see us go to at least tuition-free four-year state universities, community colleges, apprenticeship programs, or some sort of certification program. As you know, some people will choose a university, some people go for an associate's degree, and some folks are going to do something else, you know, a job training program, apprenticeship. It wasn't that long ago in our country that at many of our state university systems, it was tuition free. And I believe that today in the 21st century, where jobs require more knowledge and skill than ever, we actually need to do that in this country more than ever before. So I'm committed to working toward tuition-free public universities and community colleges and so on. And also finding ways to address people who are already saddled with $100,000, $150,000 worth of debt, and how they can more effectively refinance that in the future. This president is tearing apart this country by dividing it. And I think that Americans are ready for a president that is trying to unite the country, trying to bring it together, trying to reach across the aisle to find out where we can agree, to end all of the name-calling and childlike behavior that you've seen, the scapegoating that this president has done, the finger-pointing, the otherizing, trying to create other, whether that's immigrants or any number of people. I think people are just, one of the biggest issues is that people are ready for a different type of leadership.
All right, and then so kind of shifting gears a little bit, you talked a little bit about coming to Iowa, New Hampshire, and early states, but I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about what your campaign touring and schedules have been like for you.
Well, I mean, after I announced, the first place that I went was Puerto Rico, to San Juan, and the reason that I did that was because I wanted to let people know that if I'm president, then everybody will count. And unfortunately, the administration failed the people of Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria hit. And I wanted to send a strong message that whether you're there living on the island in Puerto Rico, fellow American citizens, or you're living in small town Iowa, or in a big city in California or the East Coast, that you count in this country. I made a pledge because of that to visit all 50 states. So I've been to places like Utah and Idaho, and during the course of this campaign I'll get to all of the other states. Of course, I've also spent a lot of time in the early states, Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, and South Carolina.
And what have you learned from traveling across the country and from the voters?
I've learned that you can get good Mexican food in Iowa, which I never knew before. But I've also learned that the things that people are most concerned about are things that affect them and their family all the time. People are concerned about whether their kid can get a good education, whether they're going to have good health care because they see the cost of health care going up again. They're concerned about job opportunities because we live in a time when people are seeing the impact of automation, and they're worried about future job prospects. All of those things. I mean, people are most concerned about the things that present themselves as a issue in their daily lives.
And so, to travel around the whole country and meet with all of these people, it does take money raised from fundraising opportunities. I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about kind of the fundraising side of your campaign. So things like, will you be accepting PAC money, small dollar donations, things like that?
Yeah, I'm not accepting any PAC money, corporate PAC money or otherwise. I'm not accepting any money from federal lobbyists because I believe people should know that if I make a decision as president, that that decision is being made in the best interest of the American people and not because somebody gave a lot of money to my campaign. We're paying our interns and staff at least a minimum wage of $15 an hour because we're trying to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. We also are getting out there and raising money online. We're going to release our numbers later tonight or tomorrow in terms of fundraising. And, I'm proud of the effort so far. We're not going to have raised as much as some of the candidates because I was building this thing from scratch. I hadn't run for Senate, had not run for president before. And so what we've seen in the last 3 or 4 weeks is that the fundraising has accelerated tremendously, which I'm happy with. And I think now we'll be able to make up some good ground in the next couple of months.
All right. Well, that is all the questions I had. Is there anything else that you wanted to add or anything else you think I should know?
No, I mean, we're here in Iowa City, and Iowa City is a community with a lot of students. And, so it's a community that I think represents one of these places that produces a lot of the talent that is going to go out and not only affect the future of this state, but of the country. And, it's communities like this that we want to make sure we're also paying attention to in terms of what we need to be doing for ensuring that people can get to places like the University of Iowa. And once they get there, also that they can thrive beyond that and find job opportunities. And, university towns, as somebody who was a former mayor, these university towns fascinate me because they have a lot of the ingredients that we want in 21st century America for success. They also have a lot of the anxieties of 21st century America because young people are worried about, are they going to be able to get a good job and afford the rent and pay off student loans. And so a community like this is really at the intersection of a lot of my vision for the future of making sure that we can have tuition-free college, of ensuring that we do something to tamp down student loan debt, of harnessing the brain power of Americans to have people that are well-trained and skilled for 21st century jobs. And so I'm happy to be here.